Okay, we're live streaming, just so you all know. But I just wanted to get all the way to the end. There we
Yeah,
go.
we get a message from you.
Okay, we are live streaming. And I'd like to ask people on Zoom to please mute so that we have the best sound possible. And we're hoping that tonight we will have no sound problems. Somebody's laughing, haha. Well, we have an expert tech person back there, Jory Yarmoff. So we are going to begin with Hine Matov, how good it is to be together. Now, if you have a fat book, it's page 128. And if you have a skinny book, it's page 10. Pretty clever trick to do two voices at once. Very impressive. Okay, to light our Shabbat candles tonight, Eileen Stein is back after many years. Yes, and did a lot of work on the Oneg tonight. Page 120 and 2. It's always a lot of fun trying to get the candles lit. Now we have broken matches in there. Yes. Okay. And boxes that don't work. Oh, yes. Why would tonight be different? Oh, there you go. The sound is good. The sound is good. The candles are lit. That didn't take too long. The mic is on. All I have to do is dip it down a little bit. Oh, it's fine.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kichani b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you, Eileen. I'll give you a hug, but I know I'm not allowed to. And the Kiddush is page 123 and 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ore peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו, בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנקילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה במקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי
בחרת אותנו קידשת.
מכל בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נקדש השבת. Amen.
L'chaim. So this week's Torah portion is Shmini, which means eighth. Immediately following the inauguration of Aaron and his sons, something very tragic happens. We read, now Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, each took his fire pan, put fire in it, and laid incense on it. And they offered before God alien fire, which God had not enjoined upon them. And fire came forth from God and consumed them. Thus they died at the instance of God. Clearly, Nadav and Avihu did something wrong, overstepping beyond the established boundaries of worship. As sons of Aaron and priests themselves, why would they ignore God's very clear and specific instructions for ritual worship? 18th century Moroccan Talmudist and Kabbalist Chaim ben Moses ibn Attar understands Nadav and Avihu to be driven by a desire to pursue God, a desire that could not be contained by established boundaries. Writing in his commentary, the Or HaChaim, Ibn Attar supports his point of view with this verse. God spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, who died when they drew too close to the presence of God. He writes, they approached the supernal light, and this was out of great love for the holy, and that's why they died. Thus, they died by, quote, divine kiss, such as experienced by the perfectly righteous. The difference is only that the righteous die when the divine kiss approaches them, while Nadav and Avihu died by their approaching it. So Nadav and Avihu's deaths were a result of loving God too much. As Jimmy Tabor writes, their story illustrates that the boundaries for worship established through God's instructions to Moses are designed in part to prevent people from becoming consumed by their passion for the divine. Significantly, Rashi understands Nadav and Avihu's destruction to be of their soul and not their body. Commenting on the description of the deceased men being carried from the camps by their tunics, Rashi writes, this tells us that their garments had not been destroyed by fire, but their souls alone, as if two strands of fire had entered their nostrils. Nadav and Avihu's clothing and bodies remained intact with no signs of burning. They had been struck by fire inwardly. So this is really a cautionary tale about getting too involved in this idea of connecting to God in a way that makes you lose your mind and your life. We're going to continue with a wonderful poem by Zelda, which is called Each of Us Has a Name. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents.
Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile, and given by what we wear.
Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls.
Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors.
Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing.
Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love.
Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work.
Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness.
Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death.
The song was written by Israeli songwriter Hanan Yovel.
בכל איש יש שם, שנתן לו אלוהים, ונתנו לו אביו ואמו. לכל איש יש שם, שנתנו לו קומתו, ואופן חיוכו, ונתן לו חיים. לכל איש יש שם, שנתנו לו הערים, ונתנו לו כתליו. לכל איש יש שם, שנתנו לו המזלות, ונתנו לו סוכנות. שנתנו לו חטאת, ונתנו לו כמיהתו. לכל איש יש שם, שנתנו לו שונאיו, ונתנו לו חמתו. לכל איש יש שם, שנתנו לו חגיו, ונתנו לו מלאכתו. לכל איש יש שם, שנתנו לו חטפות השנה, ונתנו שנתן לו אלוהים, ונתנו לו אביו ואמו. לכל איש יש שם, שנתנו לו הים, ונתן לו אותו.
That was the Hebrew of what we read, just in case that wasn't clear. Now I see people putting their hands in their fingers in their ears. Is it too loud? Yeah, I think it's too loud. What, just the piano? So I think we need to,
Or maybe it's just the monitors.
no, they're hearing it out there.
Okay, it's in your
Okay.
hands.
Just trying to make sure people don't go deaf while we're here. So, of course, our rabbis have many other ways of explaining why Aaron's two sons get zapped. Some say that the boys were arrogant and irreverent on Mount Sinai. Others that it was because they brought a strange fire that was not from the altar. Maybe instead of using the vessels of the tabernacle, they brought their own fire pans. One midrash suggests that the sin of Nadav and Avihu was that they refused to marry and have children because they felt that no woman was good enough for them. The Talmud states that Nadav and Avihu showed a lack of respect for Moses and Aaron, even saying publicly, "When will these old fellows die so that we may take control of the community?" Other commentators disagree, arguing that there is no evidence to support the claim that Nadav and Avihu were sinful. They claim that Nadav and Avihu were exceedingly righteous. One midrash maintains that because the Torah emphasizes that they brought an Aish Zarah, a strange fire, they might have been misguided only in this one matter, but otherwise they were entirely pure. Other commentators say that though they used the wrong means to bring the divine presence into the tabernacle, their motives were noble and inspired by love and joy. So, as always, two Jews, three interpretations or answers to questions, right? You never get one. But that's what's so rich about our tradition, and that's why we encourage questions. as I tried to explain to a pastor who was here the other day for the pre-Passover study, who didn't understand why we're delving in to all the aspects of Passover that wasn't about the literal meaning of the Haggadah or of the whole Seder, is that we try to see by digging and asking questions more and more what this text has to offer us. And obviously, these are just some examples of interpretations. The Chassid Kaddish is page 263 and 145.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
ילמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי דקודשה ריחו לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ויאמרו
Amen. Please rise for the Baruch Hu, page 264 and 146. Please be seated. So the first blessing before the Shema is a blessing about creation, about how God created the world, and therefore there is a purpose for our lives. And this is called Communion with Nature by Rabbi Solomon Foster. From the scenes which kind nature displays in the skies, at the shore, in the ways of the woods, the rapt soul without strain leaps the earth to the spirit's domain. Every sound, every move, every hue that the eye or the ear ever knew is a missive of import divine, with a meaning for man in each line. There is music in fields of ripe grains, which, transmuted in sensitive brains, fills the world with melodious airs to soothe life's snarling moods and sharp cares. The soft beauty the gardens enfold reshapes life to resemble the mold of the artist whose image impressed on an atom of earth makes it blessed. There is joy in the smile of the brook, which true lovers attest in their looks, as their fates blend in love's ecstasy, like the currents that merge with the sea. There's hope in the fruit of the tree, which the wise of the earth plainly see, as they plant great ideals in the youth for the future's rich harvest of truth. As recorded in medical lore, there is health in the mind's common ore to help surgeons with sanctified steel to restore to the body its wheel. The second blessing is a blessing about God's love for us that reveals Torah, our path for life, page 266 and 148.
מצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו, ויאבך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, נגע יומם ולילה. באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. אוהב עמו ישראל.
We rise for the Shema on the next page.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vahed.
Please be seated, and Carol Lee, please come up here and lead us in the Ve'ahavta, which is page 266 and 150.
Okay, everybody, chant with me, please. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ug'shartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha laman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, following the sudden death of his sons, Aaron remains silent. What are we to make of that? Rashi interprets Aaron's silence as a sign of his great faith. Aaron accepts his fate and does not complain. Assuming this is so, Aaron is rewarded for his silence. In the very next passage, God addresses him exclusively without Moses. The 19th century commentator, Rabbi Eliezer Lippman Lichtenstein, notes that the Torah describes Aaron's response with the word vayidom rather than vayishtok. Although both convey that the person is silent, Rabbi Lichtenstein finds an important difference in nuance between the two words. Whereas vayishtok, the word that was not used here, suggests abstaining from speaking, weeping, groaning, or any other outward manifestation, vayidom, which is what is used, connotes inner peace and calmness of spirit. The Torah uses this word to emphasize that Aaron's heart was at peace and his spirit calm even internally. He did not question God's ways, but accepted God's decree. However, Rabbi Shai Held notes, even if Aaron refuses to question God's ways, why total silence? Would shedding a tear or emitting a cry really have constituted a crime against God or betrayed less than perfect faith? I mean, we all know that we can question God. God's okay with that. Abraham did it. Rabbi Isaac Abravanel offers a dramatically different, and to my mind at least, a much more human understanding of Aaron's silence. Aaron's heart turned to lifeless stone, he says. He did not weep and mourn like a bereaved father, nor did he accept Moses' attempts to console him. In other words, Aaron's silence was a function of shock rather than piety. Aaron is presented not as a hero of faith, but simply as a human being, a father stunned into numbness by the unthinkable, the sudden, completely unexpected death of his two children. He does not speak because there are no words. Michamocha is page 270 and 152.
Michamocha, Baalim Adonai, Michamocha, Baalim Adonai, Michamocha, Nedar Bakodesh, Norat Tehilot, O Sefel, Norat Tehilot, O Sefel, Michamocha, Baalim Adonai, Michamocha, Baalim Adonai, Michamocha, Baalim Adonai, Machodecha, Raubanecha, Ze Eli, Anu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed.
So our Torah portion is in the book of Leviticus, which thus far has instructed the priests on how to maintain holiness in the sanctuary. As Rabbi David Kasher explains, the sacrifices themselves are described again and again as holy. The inner chamber of the tabernacle is the Holy of Holies, and the priests themselves, dressed in their holy garments, are the official representatives of this holiness. In fact, it is in this Torah portion that they receive the most explicit description of their role, and that is to distinguish between the sacred, HaKodesh, and the profane, and between the impure and the pure, and to teach the children of Israel all the laws that God spoke to Moses. All good and well, but what about the community itself? How does the community maintain holiness? Well, Rabbi Kasher suggests the following. The first indication that the children of Israel will be able to move holiness from the priesthood into their own lives comes here in this Torah portion, with a listing of kosher and non-kosher animals. This is the first set of laws we have in Leviticus that do not directly tie back to the sacrificial rites. Instead, we get the categories of mammals, fish, birds, insects, and reptiles that may or may not be eaten. The whole thing is rather technical and detail-heavy until we come to the end, when we get this sweeping statement of the purpose of these dietary restrictions. For I, Adonai, am your God. You shall sanctify yourselves and be holy, for I am holy. You shall not make yourselves unclean through any swarming thing that moves upon the earth. For I, Adonai, am the one who brought you from the land of Egypt to be your God. You shall be holy, for I am holy. So the practice of keeping kosher, as these verses make clear, is meant to sanctify the practitioner. Just as the priests have to be careful about monitoring what animals are offered in the temple and how they are prepared, So all the children of Israel will monitor what animals come into their own bodies. The priests were supposed to teach the people how to distinguish between the pure and the impure, the sacred and the profane. Why was it necessary? Well, now it's clear that the people will use what they have learned in order to make such distinctions in their own food preparation. One gets a sense that the body has become the new sanctuary, with every person treating their own mouth and stomach as a kind of mini altar upon which only holy things can be placed. And of course, the holiest thing and the first thing that was considered holy was Shabbat. Yismechu, page 272, in the fat book, 154 in the thin book.
ישמחו במלאכותיך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלאכותיך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג שבת. מקדשי שבי שבת, כולם ישמעו ויתגלו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלאכותיך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלאכותיך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג שבת. ובשבי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת, חמדת ימין אותו קראת השבת. ישמחו במלאכותיך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלאכותיך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג שבת. זכר למעשה בראשית שבת, זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. ישמחו במלאכותיך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלאכותיך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת, וקורא עונג שבת.
And we rise for the tefillah, beginning on page 273 and 155.
Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור ועולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום, והללויה סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please continue silently to page 285 or 167. And when you're done or when you're ready to, please be seated. So we're in the period between Passover and Shavuot. Passover when we escaped from slavery in Egypt, and Shavuot when we became worthy of receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. So during the period between Passover and Shavuot, we do something called counting the Omer. The Omer was a measure of barley that we would bring to the temple in the days of the temple as a sacrifice during those intermediate days. But the practice developed, especially from the Kabbalists, to use the counting of the Omer as an occasion to think about our own character and our own moral values, and to really refine ourselves during that period between Passover and Shavuot. So we are going to take a look at page 570 or 306, depending on the size of your book. For the counting the Omer, we have a blessing, and then we have the counting of the days.
הנני מוכן ומזומן, הנני מוכן ומזומן, הנני מוכן ומזומן, הנני מוכן ומזומן. לקיים מצוות עשה של ספירת העומר, לקיים מצוות עשה של ספירת העומר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על ספרת העומר. היום 9 ימים שהם שבוע אחד ושני ימים לעומר.
Which means today is the 9th day of the Omer. It's the first week and the second day. And we are going to continue with the Misha Berach. We're going to think of those who need healing, people that we're thinking of this evening. We think of those who are in need of healing of body, of mind, or of spirit, and we think of congregants and friends and family of congregants. Ben Henderson, Rabbi Steve Robbins, Gloria Mangus, Leslie Ferris, Pamela Mangus, Judy Richmond, Jesse Dollamore, Glickle Sarah Bat Devora Milka Gittel, Vicki Dix, Ron McDonald, Colton Wayne Whitaker, John Cruz, Mark Feldstein, Dan Strauss, Darlene DeMason, Linda Stroman, William Brown, Charlene Beck, Shawnee Holness, Shmuel Ben Moshe Vishprinza, Harav Leah Bat Yehuda Valif Sheikhana. If anybody would like to add a name, please do so as I look around the room. and on Zoom. Jan Archibek, Eddie Archibek, Sandra Landis, Jess Landis, Rachel Heslin, Dorothy Odson, Robin Kurland, Michael Kurland, Raul Camacho, Judy Gladstone, Terry Rowe, Portia Becker. Please join us on the Misha Berach on the inside cover of the prayer book.
שברח אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב. מי שברך אמותינו, שרה, רבקה, לאה ורחל. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, 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 and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and be strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mi sheberach avotenu, mi sheberach imotenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
Let's take a moment for silent prayer. So there's a commentator named Zohar Atkins who I find to be quite brilliant. So he wrote a really interesting commentary on today's, this week's Torah portion. So I'm going to give you pretty much his take on it. So he notices that the opening word of our Torah portion, Parashat Shmini, is Vayahi, which means, and it was. Nothing that you would necessarily pay any attention to, right? And it was. But, of course, nothing goes undiscussed by the rabbis. The Talmud debates the significance of this word. Does Vayahi suggest grief and tragedy, or does it suggest something positive and joyous? Who knew that one little word like that could have so many different possibilities? A case can be made for both readings. The word Vayahi concludes the creation of the first day of creation, a time of tremendous joy. But a long list of Vayahis also introduced terrible events throughout the Bible, including the Akedah story, when God commands Abraham to sacrifice his son, Isaac. The double meaning of Vayahi raises a question. So is this story that we're reading this week a tragedy or a celebration? On the one hand, our Torah portion, Shmini, begins with a dedication of the temple, a moment of festivity. On the other hand, it contains the horrific death of Nadav and Avihu, a catastrophe. Biblical texts, like life, often contain moments of joy and moments of tragedy all rolled into one. We don't get to separate occasions for joy from occasions for sadness simply because the mixture is confusing and inconvenient. But Vayehi contains it all. We're celebrating a moment that feels like the beginning of the world, and we're witnessing an event that feels like the end of the world, all in one Torah portion. By setting up parallels between the creation story and this Torah portion, the Talmud offers us a new perspective on both. So there's three main parallels. Creation equals dedication to the temple. Sin and exile, remember they ate the fruit and they got kicked out? That's the parallel to the death of Nadav and Avihu. And the post-Eden life is like the temple after the tragedy of the destruction. So the creation of the temple is akin to the creation of the world. Human agency is a kind of repetition of divine agency. Religious life fulfills and continues a divine mission. We're supposed to be partners with God, right? So God created the world, we create the temple for God to live in. The temple is an accomplishment that blends aesthetics, morality, and spirituality. It's good, just the way light is good. But good things don't remain forever. Enter Nadav and Avihu. Whatever you think of their error or non-error, their actions transform an uplifting spectacle into a catastrophe. This parallels the fall, whereby human beings violate the one command that would have kept them contained, safe, innocent. Once done, there is no going back. And the third parallel, life goes on. Life is hard. Yeah, we have to toil and labor. The temple persists in some form, but it's not the same. Religious life no longer feels like Eden, neither does the rest of our lives. Tragedy and shaken faith have to be incorporated into it. Is the creation of the world still worthy of celebration, knowing that eventually it'll be botched? In fact, it doesn't take very long, right? God creates this perfect world with everything in its place, everything's symmetrical, everything is just, beautiful and good and very good. And the minute God puts two human beings in charge of God's plan, they mess up. Okay? Right away. So should we have even bothered? Yes, of course. In fact, we're celebrating a world we know is going to be botched because the failures are part of what makes life interesting. At least that's his opinion. Sometimes it makes life interesting, sometimes it doesn't. The human being is very good. The human is made in the divine image. The human is also disobedient and boundary crossing. These are not distinct features of the human being. They are different ways of describing the same phenomenon. Likewise, the temple is a site of collective joy and meaning and a site of pain, disappointment, mourning, shock. Before the modern debate about whether religion is a force for good or for evil, we had this one word, Vayehi, that announced the source of the debate. The human being is itself marvelous, capable of great and terrible deeds. The same creative force that leads to the building of the temple in the first place leads to the destabilization that is caused by Nadav and Avihu. Virtue and vice, strength and weakness come from the same place. We are very good, and that's why we stray. We stray, and that's why we are very good. Nadav and Avihu are very good, yet the consequences are very bad. The priestly way is to constrain. In so doing, it tamps down on the things that make life interesting and exciting. But it also protects us from the things that make it too exciting and too interesting. It's a kind of insurance policy against the worst, the cost of which is that it prevents us from realizing the best. So Nadav and Avihu did not follow the rules about how to light the fire, how to set up the sanctuary, all of those things, which were very important to contain the divine in a way that would not blow us all up. They weren't able to do that. Sometimes you have to push the boundaries and you achieve wonderful things, but sometimes you blow things up. Not for nothing are Nadav and Avihu seen as both examples of terrible rebellion and as spiritual geniuses who bucked prescribed law. Either they are Nietzscheans who got burned to a crisp, or they are Nietzscheans who were unperturbed by common sense morality and found God in a holy fire, like moths drawn to a flame. The idea is that, morality is sort of just kind of a bourgeois thing. No, we have to go beyond morality and achieve much higher things. But again, we can blow up ourselves and the world that way. The priestly world is not Nietzschean, and the lesson of Nadav and Avihu is an admission of this. They are priests who couldn't handle and didn't want to be level-led down, didn't want to be cogs in the temple machine. Depending on frame and inclination, they are anti-authoritarian heroes, or they are narcissistic punks who put themselves above everyone else, or they are both, vayahi. They thought they were beyond the rules, above the law, but the impulse to suspend the rules is not always bad. Sometimes there really is an emergency, and it requires making exceptions. But the point of our story is that one should exercise caution when doing so. One cannot be cavalier about the state of emergency. One should not turn the exception into the rule. Exceptions can be exceptionally good or exceptionally bad. One must know what one is risking. The young boys are not brave, but reckless because they don't appreciate the risk that they are taking. They don't say, in spite of the risks, we will go anyway, on principle. They enter the temple on a whim. Ours is a story here about an institution that works for the public but does not work for these two individuals. Institutions cannot serve everyone. They can't be perfect or perfectly inclusive. Their legitimacy is always contested and protested. Nadav and Avihu are a kind of collateral damage of the temple. If they're going to consecrate this thing, we need to recognize the price. This is the post-Edenic awakening, the realization that nothing is free. The good doesn't hang on trees anymore, but involves a conflict between competing goods and values. To say yes to the temple is to say yes to a world in which the boundaries that grant it a sanctity are also too constrictive and too severe for some. The alternative, a world in which everyone is free to worship whenever, whomever, and however they want, would leave us with just all Nadav and Avihus. It may feel liberating, but it will also be such a situation where there will be no temple, no commitment, no priests, no organized ritual, no communal spectacle. It will be a world of DIY, a world of New Age religions in which the line between self-fulfillment and consumerism is thin. One reason the Nadav and Avihu story continues to resonate and challenge us is because neither authoritarianism nor liberalism has perfectly resolved the tension in human life that is described by Rav Soloveitchik between being both solitary beings with unique points of view and communal, social beings for whom it is not good to be alone. How do we balance it? It's always a balance. The temple exists because it is not good to be alone. Substitute Temple Bethel, substitute Temple Sinai, substitute Temple Emmanuel. We like to be in community. It falls and damages because so long as we are together, the pull to conformity often squeezes out our need for self-expression and creativity. Getting the balance right may well be impossible, but struggling with it the best we can and empathizing with both horns of the dilemma is a good start. Vayahi tells us everything we need to know. Woe unto us if we are alone, and woe unto us if we are not alone. So it's a constant balance between containing the sanctity and experiencing it in a way that is not going to result in your being burnt to a crisp. We're going to continue with Oseh Shalom, which is page 285 and 167.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
So a number of thank yous are in order this evening. Of course, the two people I need to thank the most just walked out. Susan and Eileen, come back, please, so I can thank you publicly. I don't know if they can hear me. Anyway, Susan organized the, thank you, Max. Susan, thank you. Eileen put together a beautiful oneg. Susan organized the whole thing, and many, many of you have brought delicious food. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I think there'll be enough for a while. Thank you for your beautiful music, Elliot. As always, some of what he sang was his own compositions, like the Shema, right? Isn't that your Shema?
And the Hinei Matov.
The Hinei Matov, yeah. Sounded like you. And Jory, thank you so much. Jory, of course, who does a million different things. Can we see you? There he is, yeah. Who does a million different things in our synagogue. And I don't know how he does it all, chairing of a whole variety of committees and working on the tech, and he finally got it right tonight. Thank you. We've had some issues. You know, the reason is because Jory set it up so that we can hear people on Zoom in here. We don't use it all that often, but it is possible to have that interaction, and most places don't do that. They either just live stream it or they just Zoom it, and there's no interaction. So it makes the audio much more complicated. So we appreciate that effort. And Sherry Cruz from our board is here tonight. She's the secretary of the board, and she also, and Diane, is Diane still here somewhere? There she is. Sherry Cruz and Diane Cosman with Tiffany Ferris and Judy Lehrer, but these two ladies organized tomorrow night's dinner and event, and I know they worked very, very hard. So thank you so much. Yes. So Sherry is also on the bima tonight.
Shabbat Shalom. Please join us tomorrow, Saturday, April 15th, when Rabbi Suzanne Singer will be called to Torah as a bat mitzvah. All are welcome for this. Okay, is that better? Please join us tomorrow, Saturday, April 15th, when Rabbi Suzanne Singer will be called to the Torah as a bat mitzvah. All are welcome for the service at 3 p.m. here at the temple. Yom HaShoah service will be on Monday, April 17th at 6 p.m. in person and on Zoom. We'll begin with the screening of the film Syndrome K, the true story about a highly contagious, highly fictitious disease created by 3 Roman Catholic doctors during the Holocaust to hide Jews. In addition, we will feature a performance of Sarah Plays Her Game about Nazi-occupied Paris. The evening will conclude with a meaningful service. The next Torah study led by Rabbi Singer will be on Saturday, April 22nd at 10 a.m. on Zoom. Please join us on Sunday, April 23rd at 11 a.m. for a special program, Roots, Two Truths Within One Heart, Mutual Understanding Between Israelis and Palestinians. Roots has created and operates the only joint Israeli-Palestinian community center in the entire West Bank, Judea, and Samaria. This safe, holy space hosts social, religious, and educational activities, bringing together hundreds of Palestinians and Israelis who begin to realize that there are 2 truths, 2 stories, not one, in this land, and the only way forward is to cherish both. The program will feature 2 activists, one Israeli and one Palestinian, who will tell their life story and the story of their people and its connection to the land. They talk about their personal transformation upon meeting the other side and what that did to them. And of course, they talk about Roots, what it has taught them and what we do and teach. Save the date for the annual Bagel and Lox Brunch event on Sunday, May 7th from 10:30 to 1. An invitation email was sent out earlier this week with a link to RSVP, and you can also call the office. And the oneg for tonight is in honor of Rabbi Singer's bat mitzvah and is sponsored by our temple family. Thank you.
And on top of everything else, Sherry is also the head of the Legacy Fund. And the Legacy Fund, which Rosalie Anderson started, Rosalie was on Zoom. I hope she's still there. Yeah, you see her? Okay, hi, Rosalie. Thank you for starting the Legacy Fund, because in the 15 years I've been here, I've been able to bring a lot of really interesting people and programs thanks to the Legacy Fund. So that's really been a boon, and I know that other colleagues of mine who are in small congregations don't have that kind of money to bring people in. So, the Roots program that's coming up, and, a lot of what we've had over the years has been funded by the Legacy Fund. Really appreciate that. Okay, Jordan and my mother-in-law, Mimi Lund, is here for the festivities. They're going to open the Ark for the Aleinu, which is on the inside cover of your prayer book, and we rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרמים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We take a moment now to think of those who are no longer with us. May their memories be for a blessing. Did somebody lose their glasses? Oh, okay. Is anyone here in Shiva Shloshim or the first year of mourning who would like to mention a name? And let me look at first year, Irving Klein, Sheldon Cohen, Judith Cohen. First year, Sean Heslin, Lita Mintz. First year, David Tanizaki. First year, Terry Sion, Stephen Alexander, Patty Podner, first year. And we're also observing yahrzeits this Shabbat for Jenny Elkin, Ray Kustner, Bernard Siegel, Nathan Besson, Nicole Silberkleit, Zvi Barlev, Stanley Karp, Erwin Lux, Herbert Brown, Charlotte Mann, Fannie Miller, David Ramick, Ida Ramick, Roberta Blyer, Edith Badofsky, Sanford Schneider, Ben Meltzer, Jerome Palmer, Ellen Schmuckler, Samuel Blacker, Marvin Goffman, Philip Chernak, Sophie Singer, John Hurst, Sigmund Cohn. Is anyone else here observing a yahrzeit? Anybody on Zoom observing a yahrzeit? Of course, we think of those who perished in the Holocaust and have no one to say the mourner's cottage for them. Please join me, page 598 and 294, and we rise if we're able. Yikadal, v'yikadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yehutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'zman kariv imru, amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam l'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudashah b'richu. Le'ela min kol bilchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Ta'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. Yoseh shalom b'imromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, as together we say, amen. Our closing song is Adon Olam, which is page 625 and 321.
Adon Olam, Hashem Alach, B'terem Kol, Yitzin Yivra, Et Nasa, B'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra, Ve'acharech, Kichlot HaKol, Levado, Yimloch Nora, Azai melech shemo nikra, ve'achari kichlot hakol levado, yimloch nora, ve'hu haya ve'hu hove, ve'hu yiyeh betifara. Adon olam Hashem elach b'terem kol yitzir nivra, ve'et nasa ve'chefzo kol. Azai melech shemo nikra, ve'achari kichlot hakol levado, yimloch nora, ve'hu haya ve'hu hove, betifara, ve'hu haya ve'hu hove.
Don't go anywhere until we've done the motzi. Jacob, come on up here.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Shabbat Shalom. Please join us for the spectacular oneg in the social hall.
Back, everybody.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we gotta take the table out.
Oh, well, well, you know, I think I put one too many in the first round. In my other score, I have them numbered, and I have a different score there, which is two.
We were all the way from.
Yeah, oh well.
But everybody was singing with you, and I'm going like, "Here are
I should have pointed more, yeah.
It doesn't matter, Elliot.
Yeah.
You couldn't have done anything. There was nothing you could have done other than to specifically say.
Join it.
We're taking the Torah table out of the
Why is she doing it?
the strongest one here. What are you talking about?
There's too much junk up here.
Yeah.
God. Okay, Caroline, wait, I'm coming. Those glasses away. She's coming for energy.
Put this one back now or
Yeah,
leave it out?
yeah. Nobody uses it.